from the great state of Georgia. Congressman Barry Loudermilk is with us. Barry, how are you, sir?
Doing good, Glenn. How are you doing today?
I am really good. I have to tell you, I want to spend a couple of minutes as we get past some of this other stuff in the interview, talking about a book that you wrote this summer. I didn't hear anything about it. It somehow or another arrived on my desk, and I picked it up, and I was going on an airplane. And I have to tell you, Barry, I read that thing cover to cover, and I don't even know if anybody really knows about this book. I think it is one of the best history books and the most appropriate for its time right now. I actually want to talk to you about recording it myself. I think it would make a series of podcasts that are just fantastic. I just love it. That would
be awesome.
Yeah. It's called And They Prayed.
One of our goals.
Yeah, go ahead.
One of our goals is to do an audio book on this. I just haven't had the time to do the recording yet. So my family's been after me to do it, but I've been a little bit busy with investigations and legislative work.
Well, I'd love to make it in podcast. I think it's fantastic, Barry. It needs to be heard. We'll talk about that in a second. First, let me talk to you about what is going on. First of all, let's start with the pipe bombs. What is the latest on these pipe bombs?
Well, Glenn, it's amazing what having an administration that actually wants to get to the truth can do to change a narrative. What we have learned, and the premise that we went on in the previous 2 years that I was investigating, is that these pipe bombs were placed in the evening of January 5th. Right. And so everyone was going off of that premise. We start, and of course, I had reached out to the FBI several times during that time period. Of course, the Biden administration were not forthcoming with information. Basically, they always use this excuse. This is an ongoing investigation, so we can't share that information. I'm like, goodness gracious, how long is this investigation going to go? So what we've learned through the Trump administration is that story doesn't fit with the facts that we're finding. It appears to us, and let me give you credit, because you brought this up on a show I was doing with you over a year ago, that the pipe bombs had a 60-second egg timer on them. So how could you place...
Thank you.
I mean, a 60-minute egg timer, right?
Yep.
You brought that up. I started researching that. I talked to some bomb experts, and they said, well, quite often, that is an override. In other words, you have an electronic trigger that actually sets off the bomb, but you put the egg timer on to basically set it, and it triggers the other trigger. You know, it enables it. It just basically gives you time to get away. So we were going on that premise. Well, one thing we get is the lab report from the FBI on the pipe bombs. Just got that recently. There was no electronic timer. The only timer was that 60-minute egg timer. So it's impossible that these pipe bombs were placed and armed on the night of January 5th. They had to be placed at some point not long before they were found on January 6th, because a lady that lives close by to the one that was placed by the Republican National Committee, and her testimonies, which have been consistent, she said there were still 20 minutes left on the egg timer when she found it.
Right.
So that's one huge inconsistency. The other is mysterious data, or data that has been it's disappeared. And it was when the FBI was doing geofence searches. They went to all the major cell carriers and asked for all the precise data of people who were in that area on January 5th and 6th. Mm-hmm. All the carriers provided information except for one, at&t. At&t apparently corrupted the data. Now, we kept hearing that the data was corrupted, and this is in my previous investigation. at&t claimed they didn't corrupt the data. The FBI did. The FBI, we found out later, said, no, the data was corrupted when we got it. Now that we get the real information, it becomes even more mysterious. There is a entity known as FirstNet. FirstNet was created by Congress after 9/11 to preempt cell service for law enforcement. So they only serve law enforcement first responders. So in a time of emergency, their calls take priority. So FirstNet actually sits on an at&t backbone. For some reason, and this is where my suspicion started growing, is when the FBI contacted AT&T, gave them a preservation letter, said, save all of this data specifically around the areas where the pipe bombs were, because they have to go through the legal mumbo jumbo to actually get the subpoena. So they don't want stuff to disappear. They send a letter telling AT&T to preserve the data. AT&T responds and says, you have to go to FirstNet to get this data. Which raises my suspicion. Why are they telling them to go to the carrier just for law enforcement? Well, according to FirstNet, that data was going to be deleted within just a few hours. So they were in this massive hurry to download all the data before it was deleted, and somehow it just got corrupted. I'm not buying the story.
Okay, so wait a minute. Why would FirstNet have access to the data? Why wouldn't it still be with AT&T?
My question, I've questioned that, and this is what we're seeking right now. Was it law enforcement information that the FBI was seeking, or first responder? First of all, there was a reason AT&T sent them over to FirstNet. Correct. We don't know. We've been told that FirstNet had just signed a contract with the FBI, and so they were handling all the data retrieval. So that's a possibility. I mean, these are questions we don't have that we are seeking right now. But the bottom line is the narrative that we were sold on is not even close to what the evidence is bringing up.
So what does that imply? Who is giving us this false testimony and evidence?
Well, that's what we need to find out. Is it AT&T? Is it FirstNet? Is it, and probably likely to an extent, the FBI? So we're going to be requesting more information from the FBI as far as details of their investigation. What FBI had claimed, the Biden FBI, was, well, obviously the person who placed the pipe bomb, their data was in that AT&T set that got corrupted. I'm still having an issue with the corruption. I spent 20 years in the IT business. When data is never really deleted, it's always saved somewhere. It may be archived. I can't understand how such a carrier like AT&T will just arbitrarily delete data literally within a few days of a major event. In our previous investigation, we contacted all these carriers, and one carrier says, look, when it's a significant event, we keep that data forever. They said, we even still have data from the Oklahoma City bombing.
Wow.
So if that's the case, I'm not really buying the story that
was any other data. I mean, they seem to have found everybody, every grandmother. Was any other data corrupted other than this particular area?
That's what we need to know, but my understanding is no, just the area around the pipe bomb. And it was very precise data that would actually give you the distance from the cell tower. So this is what we're, kind of dealing with, is you got to go off of some kind of premise. Well, why? We've learned who claimed to have corrupted the data. And what they're saying is they were in such a hurry to download it before it automatically deleted that it overloaded the server, and the server corrupted all the data. I'm thinking somebody needs some better servers if that's the case.
Yeah, that's weird for AT&T. Let me give you one more question on this, and then I want to move on to the shutdown. What about the FBI saying that the bombs were viable, and lab never using that word viable? What does that mean? And also, is there a chance that this was some sort of a training exercise, or these were training exercise bombs?
Well, that is something I've recently brought up, is when you look at the lab report from the FBI, and we're looking a little deeper in that lab report too.
Yeah.
It never does use the word, as you said, the word viable. It does say that there were explosive components in it, but it never says that it was enough to cause a massive explosion. And so from my time in the military, we did a lot of different training exercises. And if you're going to do a real training exercise, you made things as realistic as possible. I mean, I remember when I was in the Air Force, we had a simulated attack on our base. We literally had jets flying overhead shooting blanks, right? You try to make it as realistic as possible. Right. Especially for an exercise like this, you want a device that looks like a bomb and it smells like a bomb for a bomb-sniffing dog.
Yes.
But here's the issue. We have video of the Secret Service with a bomb-sniffing dog walking literally within feet of where the bomb supposedly was placed the night before and never hits on anything. So if it was, which makes me think, if it is a training exercise, the bomb wasn't there when the dog was walking by, or he should have hit on it. So there's more questions than answers, but at least we have a direction to go. So I think there is a possibility that these were, whether it was a training exercise or somebody just used training type devices to put out there. But if you go back and you look at the videos we released a year ago, law enforcement were letting people just walk by these devices. There's one video of a guy in a suit walking within feet of the robot that's about to destroy the device. That makes no sense, unless somebody knew they weren't viable.